Hi, people. I'm Dax,
And then
and this is Full His House.
your Full House fancast.
How you doing, Em? I'm excited. We're here. We're doing it.
We are here. We are doing it. And I am excited too, surprisingly. Not sure how I feel about it so far, but I'm excited to get into something different.
Yeah. Obviously, for me, this was one of my favorite shows growing up, and I'm just really excited to go back, bring my perspective with it with my best friend. For those of you who don't know, which would pretty much be everybody, I'm. This is super close to me. I spent pretty much the entire childhood that I had just catching this show on TV. And you had a little bit more of a touch and go relationship with the show, right?
Yeah, I've definitely seen episodes kind of in between. My sister was more so on the Full House thing. I was more so on the Family Matters train. So with us being a bigger household, we kind of always had to go back and forth. So I never really sat down to watch any consecutive episodes. Just like one here, one there. I feel like I've seen maybe one episode from each season by accident.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, this is pretty much going to be like your first go around of it. I know the series very, very well, so I'm going to be super biased the entire time, but it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun because I'm finally going to be able to just like share it with someone and like see if I'm just crazy or if the show slaps as hard as I always thought. And of course, we're going to be bringing just our perspective to it. You know, we grew up in households of color, maybe a little bit less understanding than what's on, this sitcom. But we just want to make sure that, we're just keeping it real. We're throwing in our perspectives, and we're also just seeing it with 2024 eyes. And we definitely already have a lot to talk about in just the first episode alone. So, yeah, just excited.
I'm excited too. We definitely have a lot to talk about after I've watched through the first episode. I definitely have a lot of thoughts of my own. And while I grew up with a white mom, it was still very much a mixed household. I have four siblings, so it's going to be interesting to see how they portray, I guess, a standard white suburban household. I guess minus a mom in this case, but maybe too dark of a joke too early. But we'll see when we get into it.
I mean, yeah, hey, it's the late '80s, early '90s. So what's dark for us right now is just casual to them. So I'm sure that we will be absolutely fine. So without further ado, we'll just get right into it. The first episode is titled Our Very First Show. It aired on September 22nd, 1987. Pretty sure before either one of us were born, correct? Michelle? Em?
1987, yeah, no, that one was definitely before me.
Awesome. And the summary goes, when Danny Tanner's wife, Pamela, is killed in an auto accident, he finds himself left all alone to raise his three daughters, DJ, Stephanie, and baby Michelle. Fortunately, Danny's hair-obsessed rock star brother-in-law, Jesse Cochran, along with Danny's cartoon-loving friend, Joey Gladstone, move in to help Danny raise his girls. On the first day, DJ runs away, and Jesse and Joey find extreme difficulty and anxiety in changing Michelle. So before we get too deep into it, initial thoughts. How do you feel about this pilot?
Initial thoughts. I think it was a good pilot. I think that they gave us a lot to go off of. As we go through scene by scene, I'll kind of break down the things I was disappointed in. The episodes I have seen, I think a lot of it makes a lot more sense now. Just seeing that pilot episode, kind of where it began. Because if you just kind of see episodes in between, it's not a show that you have to follow religiously to understand. But it's one of those shows where when you do see the full episode or the first episode and you see it all the way through, certain things make a lot more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. This was definitely during a time where they didn't put a lot of thought into the next episode they were going to make unless it was actually a two-parter. So continuity is going to be a thing, but it does make it a little bit easy for people to just kind of jump in and watch it if it is just like a one-off episode, even though this is a very, very long journey that we are about to go on. And there's a lot of arcs, there's a lot of development, and I'm just really excited. Yeah, we are starting off in the living room. Grandma is heading out, but there is a series of ongoing hugs occurring between Stephanie and DJ. And we learn that Pamela, the mom of the house, has passed away 3 months ago. That fresh. The fact that it's not still already just a depressing household with everybody just crying and feeling weird and awkward. Um, I think it was bold of them to paint that picture and make it like a comedy, and it's already really funny. And yeah, but I mean, you can see the girls' pain with just how they don't want to leave their grandmother. The
No,
interesting choice.
I have to definitely agree. 3 months is very, very fresh. It's especially for the kids. I mean, me personally, I feel like if I was in that situation, 3 months in, it would be really hard for me to kick my mom out. It's like, no, it's kind of nice to have somebody here who can, like take care of everything that the person who's no longer here you used to take care of. Grandma is a mom at the end of the day. So it's like it's easy for her to step into that role and kind of help make the kids not feel so much of that loss so quickly. It was very ballsy to have it be just 3 months in. Most writers have been like, oh, 2 years later, he's trying to move on and whatnot. No, we're starting out very fresh with all the wounds, so we know that we're going to be in for a real emotional trip as everybody tries to find a way to heal and move on.
Yeah, but I mean, Danny's got his head held high, and he's ready to just be like, you know what, mom, not it right now. I got my boys coming through. We're gonna handle the girls, and we're gonna do this thing. And I do. There is something to be said about like, nah, I'm the dad. I'm gonna have to, I don't want to just fall back on my mom. Maybe that's what the thought process there was, but we all know it's because we need the plot to plot. So it's just kind of how it played out. Um, right after that, we have Stephanie just holding on to her grandmother as Danny is trying to physically remove her,
The
remove her from
clinging
the hug.
fingers, just not letting go. That was so
So
funny
cute.
to me. I feel like all of us kind of had at least one moment with like a grandparent or an aunt, like that one family member who was kind of your favorite. Like when they came over, you didn't want them to leave, and when they did leave, you cried and your little fingers clung to their clothes, hoping nobody would try to pull you away from them. I completely understand that feeling.
That freaking it must have been heartbreaking for Danny to just like actually have to pull her off, but she's
Man,
not dying, so so it shouldn't be too bad. But right after that, we find out that the girls are going to be sharing a room, which
mm-hmm.
is a huge deal for them. And I did want to ask you just a little bit about this because I didn't get my own room for the longest time when I was growing up, just because like sometimes it just typically happens that way. We're all kind of sharing rooms. We all kind of have
Mm-hmm.
to live in this one box because that's just where the budget is at right now. But it is another sense of loss for a child to have had that privacy and now they have to like share the whole space and it's a whole level of adaptation that they have to go through. I felt it because it's just another loss that they're going through again.
See, I felt that exact loss in a sense of like having your room and then not having it. Being the oldest at the beginning, because you are the oldest and you're kind of starting to develop and whatnot, you end up getting that privacy for a moment at least. I think I had my own room for 2 or 3 years before my brother started becoming of age, and then he couldn't share a room with my littlest sister anymore. So she had to split them up. In which case, he got his own room, and me and my sisters all had to bunk in two and two. So I went from having my own space with like a room full of furniture. It was completely mine. I had posters, everything. It was complete. I even painted the walls purple. Like it was completely mine. And then my brother, I think he turned like 9, and he needed his own room. So I got moved from mine to bunk in with my sister, my the one who's just below me, and I ended up being in there for a while. And there was a couple times where we swapped out, but from that point, I was kind of always in in a room with somebody else. Other than one time, actually, there was one time where I don't know why. I think it's just because my mom understood that I was feeling the loss of not having my own space anymore. But we had moved into this little apartment, 2 bedrooms, and again, there's me and my 4 siblings, and then my mom. Right? It was 2 bedrooms, and she gave me my own room, and she slept in the room with all of my siblings. Now, it wasn't like that for long, but I appreciated just being able to have that space again for a little while, even if it was temporary.
Yeah, I think that's super cool that she was able to like acknowledge and see that pain and just adjust to it, which I'm sure Danny would really, really love to do, but that's just not like the situation that they're in right now. He
Yeah.
just has to he just has to make it work with them. Um, right then, Jesse walks in. Jesse talks about a girl he met and is he pretty much stops. He gets stopped by Danny before getting into the inappropriate bits, and we pretty much learn almost everything we need to learn about Jesse and just his views on women, how he carries himself, the whole rock star thing, walking in with the guitar, coming in with the hair and all of that. And we have that like really cute little moment where Stephanie wants to play ballerina with him, and they have that back and forth. Yes, he does. No, he doesn't. Type of thing, and he's trying to act like he's too hard for it, but he actually does it, which I honestly think is super cute. Jesse was always my favorite character growing up, not because of the aesthetics, because I was always kind of too young to even pick up on that whole thing, but I just always enjoy finding the jerk in all of the things that I watch because they're funny. The part of their whole thing is just that they are funny. So I just kind of found like, oh, it's funny because you don't want you're not in this whole thing, but you live in this delusional ass house where everybody's hugging and cutesy and like that. And it's I just like I do like his I do like his entrance and just his whole thing.
No, I completely agree with Jesse. The way that they did him was definitely kind of like that bad boy vibe and whatnot. But we do like them because they are funny, and they're not funny in like your traditional way of like, oh, they're really making me laugh. Like they have good jokes or whatever. It's more so in like a just who they are as a person, the way they choose to react to certain things, the animation in their faces, like the little noises, the grunts, the little those things make me laugh. You as a person, the way you choose to react and move through the world makes me laugh. And that's kind of what Jesse gives is like just the way he chooses to react or not react to things is what's going to really make you laugh. He's never going to be trying to do that. If anything, if we were there, he'd be pissed off that we were laughing at him. But it is funny to watch somebody who's growing in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And right after that, Joey enters with his horn, and he announces that he moves into a place with a washing machine on the exact day that he runs out of clean clothes, and we get a nice little moment of everybody just being a little bit grossed out by that.
Love
And
that. Just drop them on the
like,
floor for everybody.
like I've arrived, y'all. He talks about the alcove, which we can just spend a little bit of time on. I think it's actually very generous of him to have been given the alcove for free. I do kind of understand, and we'll see it later, but Jesse gets the full room. You know what I mean? So it's interesting that it's not the couch, it's the alcove. It's almost like the couch would be inappropriate or something like that. Like why isn't he just couching it for a while? Why does it have to be the alcove?
Can I just point out a very obvious thing? And this might be jumping in a little bit, but we watched the full episode through, right? So why was the garage not an option?
Because that's the actual answer is that is a later episode. But why wasn't that the initial like you have a
Exactly.
garage?
Exactly.
Like
It's like you could technically give him a full room, but you've chosen to stick him in a corner like he's Angel from Dirty Dancing and sit over there and just wait. Just we'll find a spot for you at some point, but for right now, this is where you are. This little hooded spot under my stairs. You're Harry Potter. Stay in your lane. Like that.
yeah,
It was hilarious, but in one end, I really felt like the chemistry between Danny and Joey was lacking. Especially in, I felt like that could have been such a fun, interesting moment between the two to really build that chemistry. But instead, we just kind of got this like, oh, Joey trying to be a comedian and trying to drop jokes. He's a fun, very free flowing guy. And then Danny, who's trying to put his life back together, but who's definitely taking it a little bit more seriously. And there's just no chemistry that hits on screen. They just kind of introduce him as being a best friend, but we see nothing to back that up.
yeah. And it could also be that just like in the short amount of time, because this was something that happened 3 months ago, they just didn't, they weren't out here trying to clean out the whole garage and make it comfortable for someone to actually live in.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it could also be like, hey, this is a temporary thing. We don't need to do all that. But yeah, interesting choice. But we all learned what an alcove is, I think, with this episode. So
I have
yeah,
never heard that word up until this point, and at least at this
before
point,
or
I
since.
got the word and a dictionary reference for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's pretty great. So right about now is when we get entered into Jesse's full room, which was, it used to be Stephanie's room, which is why there's pink bunnies everywhere. And we got a nice little moment between Danny and Jesse where he just says, I really appreciate you coming out. The girls are so happy to have you here, which I didn't know. Seen this episode many, many times. I don't see any excitement from them about any of this happening, but they.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it could also just be like, oh yeah, it's cool. My uncles are here, but whatever. But Danny just expresses his gratitude and just lays a really nice hug on Jesse. And Jesse has a moment with himself where he says, "You are hugging me in a room with pink bunnies." Now, there have been conversations about if this is just Jesse being hard or if he is just setting a straight up boundary right now. Because some people just they don't be hugging. I know that some people hate it when someone just walks up to them and they're like, "Oh, I'm a hugger." Some people are just really not into it. But in terms of the joke, I think that it is just like Jesse being like, "This setting is just not me right now. What the, you know what I mean?"
Mm-hmm. No, I completely get that, and in a sense, I do like it. It feels like it's a boundary, but it also feels like it's a boundary that doesn't really have a purpose. If you kind of get what I'm saying, it's like okay. I mean, if it wasn't bunnies and it was dinosaurs, would that be better, or is it just the uncomfortability of being hugged by another man in a kid's bedroom?
It could be the latter. Which, when you say
It
it out
definitely
loud
could
like
be
that it is
right.
weird.
Exactly. It's like you a grown man are hugging me, another grown man in a kid's bedroom. This feels a little bit weird. So it's like it does feel like a bit of a boundary, but it also feels like maybe Jesse doesn't really even understand why it makes him uncomfortable.
Yeah, I agree on all fronts. It's what we do know is that it makes for a pretty funny moment. I do think, at least the laugh track will tell us so.
Hmm.
And right after that, we get the girls are in their room. DJ is laying down the law about how the room divides with her. I guess it's like a party streamer or something like that that
I
she's just
think that's what
dividing
it
the room
was.
up,
Yeah.
which I think
Hmm.
is so cute because that's what a kid would have on them. I know that it's a professional show and everything, but little things like that, like that's exactly what. If it wasn't that, it would have been chalk. You know what I mean? Like I
Honestly,
love it.
I love that they went with the streamers because it very much gave like, oh, we're gonna draw a line, so let's go to the garage and see what we have in one of those bins down there. Like, and you just kind of come across, the extra streamers that weren't used in like a birthday party you had 6 years ago for no reason.
Hmm.
So it gives a small extra piece of a story that keeps it in this like family environment. It makes it gives you almost a bit of nostalgia because everybody kind of remembers like having your birthday party, and if there were streamers there was always extra streamer, and sometimes they were packed away and used at another time, and other times you got to do something weird or fun with it or whatever. But party streamers in itself, I think, is just it's a family item that brings a lot of nostalgia to anybody if they've had any kind of small birthday party where you go to Party City and pick up the cheap plastic stuff that has your favorite cartoon character on it or
Yeah,
superhero.
yeah, it does. It just adds that like playground eyes detail to the scene, and it's really really cute. Just
Exactly.
reinforcing that these are little children.
Mm-hmm.
And we have that whole dynamic with she tells Stephanie, you climb out the window and come back in through the front if you want to like exit this room. And we have that whole thing where she's climbing the curtain, which um, it still to this day kind of makes me a little bit nervous. But I they talk about this a little bit on the How Rude Tanneritos podcast that Jodie Sweetin, I should say, had a lot of fun, doing stunts and performing and stuff like this. And even though she was, very small, she was just up for all of this stuff. So she was probably just like the golden child for them to just try all of these
Mm-hmm.
things with. And I think that she, I feel like most kids would be freaking the fuck out at that at that moment. So just the bravery on her, you gotta give it up a little bit.
She kind of reminds me of one of my siblings, to be honest. Actually, the two middle ones, to be completely honest, because her, them putting the line down and then saying, "Oh, you can go out the window. That's your exit and entrance." and then trying to finagle your way over, but in a way that's obviously very dangerous for you as a child. Something that happened in my household a shit ton, so much, on almost a consistent basis. If there were lines drawn, that's fine, but I'm going to find some way to get around your lines. And usually it was always these boundaries that would then put your sibling in like borderline danger. Like for like small example, right? If we were playing a game and it happened to be truth or dare, the dare wasn't going to be anything easy. It was going to be like, oh, jump over the fence where those three big ass dogs are, and then jump back after you count to 10. Like it was like trying to scare the shit out of your sibling or to get some kind of reaction out of them that you found to be funny. And in this case, it wasn't necessarily trying to get a reaction that you found to be funny. It was trying to push back against someone who they felt like was invading their space by creating a smaller space inside of the already small space that they had.
Yeah, I think she just generally didn't really care too much about it being a scary situation nor a dangerous one. It's just
Mm-mm.
this is just the world we're living in, bro. Like this is how
Yeah.
you're gonna handle it. Which and that's just it's as the older sibling, you do get to make those rules every once in a while. But I do love that the way that they present Stephanie is just like, yes, I am the middle sibling. Yes, I am the younger
Mm-hmm.
sibling. But I'm gonna work that. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna use that. That's my
The
superpower. This
middle
is how I'm
sibling is
gonna.
always going to sneaky snake through everything. They're going to instigate here, mess with things there, and then slither on through as everybody else gets to take the fall because they're right in that sweet spot.
Ain't nobody looking at me. And
Exactly.
she gets to have the benefit of still being very very small, which is why she's able to
Mm-hmm.
actually use Danny to get out of the room. Right before that, we do have like that cute little kika laka kukala moment with Joey, which apparently was a thing for him throughout, I guess, like the series backstage. Like it's
Oh,
something he, I mean, something that funny on the first day. Yeah, I would imagine that it would come back up. It's pretty good. And we also find out that Danny is a sports reporter. So we get a little bit more of background of just the personalities, the occupations, and all of that stuff. And Danny is out the door, and right after that, we get the first interaction between Jesse and Joey and Michelle alone. The start to a very iconic and controversial scene. Before that, we do get the whole "Hey, shut up" moment with Jesse, which I don't think is great, but I get it. When you don't have a lot of experience with children, so I guess some people do tend to use that force, or maybe that's just a reflection of how he was raised when he was a kid. But babies
okay.
can't talk, so "Hey, shut up" doesn't normally work.
Right. That part. See, that I, I kind of actually laughed at that, but I did wish that they would have, maybe gone about it a little bit different. Like we already have Jesse who wants to appear to be hard, but also appear to kind of be, flawless in his own, charming bad boy way. So in the sense, it would have been funny if he would have maybe turned this over to Joey a little bit. Like, what, you don't know what to do? Make the baby stop crying. She's screaming. Make her stop crying. You're supposed to know this, funny man. Like it felt like there was a small opening that was missed in order to build more chemistry between two characters that we're obviously going to see a lot together because Danny is the breadwinner. He's going to be gone all the time, which means these two people are now going to be like full blown like live-in dads at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have been interesting to really see that like parenting dynamic that we would get from the get-go instead of just a hey shut up, which again was like kind of funny because realistically I think everybody wants to say that, but most people don't, then go in to scream the baby to shut up. But he's our free-flowing bad boy. He doesn't know any better, or he just doesn't care. We don't really know yet. I think
Or
it's
that beautiful combination of both, which has
right.
done great for some people, men. I I'm sorry. I'm gonna
A
not be
little tangent, but I look, I get it, I feel it, I understand it, I relate to it, I get it.
and I do love. So Joey does try with the voices. We do get a little bit of his Rolodex, his tool belt of voices, which we will see time and time again. I almost don't even want to get into it too much because we're going to get so much of it. And he does his sprinkler. Jesse does the has the
The
umbrella.
umbrella.
All really great.
Do you remember where they pulled that umbrella from? Because right now, thinking back on it, I cannot think of where the umbrella was even pulled out from. Like, where was it sitting that Jesse then just kind of pulled it out in?
Was it was either leaning against a chair or the crib. Like,
But wasn't it like a little umbrella?
right. So like wherever it was at, we probably weren't really able to see it. You know, he probably pulled it out from like, you know, like I really don't know, but it did seem a little bit magical, like a little bit mini Mary Poppins moment of just
Exactly.
like,
For some reason, my mind kept thinking back, and I was like I cannot for the life of me think of where he pulled that umbrella from, and it was just it's such a small thing, but it bugged me for at least the last couple of hours. I was thinking, like, where did he pull that from? I can't remember where he pulled that from. Where do you just have a little umbrella where he doesn't have to like bend down behind something to pick it up off the ground? It was like doll size.
all right, that detail is bumping me a little bit because he did have, maybe it was on a chair. All right,
Exactly.
I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back, and we're in episode 2. We will have the answer of this question: where did Jesse get the umbrella, or the little parasol, or whatever it was? Because it did look more like fashion than function. It was super cute.
100%. It was adorable.
um, and this next scene apparently, and this was a detail also shown on or heard on How Rude Canaritos, but this next scene, the changing scene, was the scene that got the network to buy the show or buy the pilot. You know, this was that it was it. So these three people sold this show. It's one of my favorite scenes just to ever happen to television. I do think that we all know it's iconic. We all know it's step one, step two, step one, step two. Like it's so good. They're you know, the meat rack and all of that stuff. But we do have to take a second because we this scene gives us pause. This scene
Yeah.
gives us pause, and I know you have feelings.
But there's the whole scene itself, right? Like I don't feel any bad feelings towards the scene. Like you said, it was a good scene. It made me laugh. There was just that one part in specific when they had Michelle's bare bottom up towards the camera and they started spraying her down with water. That specifically, and then when the live audience laughter kicked in behind it, I got so uncomfortable. Not to a point where I was like, okay, I'm not watching this anymore. This is disgusting. These people are sick. You know, these strange men are just holding. Like my mind didn't go there at all. It was more just like a that feels like a
Ooh.
weird way to try to give off this like cute like family friendly moment because it the way it was done definitely gave off like a oh this is like a cute family home video type of moment, something you'll look back at when you're about to get married and someone decides to play it at your wedding at one point, like, oh, look at her, she was so cute. But that's just not what this moment was. And I don't know what about it made it kind of kick in that is like, okay, that's not this moment, this is in front of a live studio audience, and it makes me kind of uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know that this is kind of besides the point, but for me, the whole thing with the water wasn't even effective. So, like, if she actually did have some, you know what I
There
mean?
was
Like, she
no
would have still,
purpose to it.
exactly. So, like, I understand that the whole point was because funny, but like, yeah, it
Yeah.
was an interesting choice. But I think we all have to be very like honest with the real person selling this scene right now is Jodie Sweetin, is Stephanie, the how do you roast a turkey, her interaction with them, and just like
Oh
knowing
yeah, 100%.
her acknowledgement that they have no idea what they're doing, that this child can see through their messiness is just so hilarious. Um, and yeah, and I do like the whole he puts the diaper in the freaking Tupperware and he says, "Good thinking, Joey, keep it
Mm-hmm.
fresh." Like that, it's all great. It's all pretty great.
No, the scene itself was like I said, I liked everything about it other than that one moment. That one moment definitely gave me pause, but it didn't ruin the show for me. And Stephanie definitely saved that moment with her little inputs and her little 2 cents. And even just those small moments where they would take like a second and a half to move over to her face just to show you the animated expression she has on her face as she's watching them go through this circus style experiment to try and figure out how to change this baby's diaper. I thought it, I thought that it was cute, it was adorable, it was probably relatable to a lot of people. Maybe not at this moment because I feel like we have a lot more knowledge on at least that specifically, but it was still a very cute, timeless moment.
I mean, if you put a baby with a dirty diaper in front of me, I don't think that I would do any better than what they did, to be
I
honest with
also
you.
don't think you would put the baby in a pot and then put him in, a sink to wash him down and then wrap him in paper towels and a plastic bag. I don't see that being the specific route you go. I feel like everybody, even most children, know that diapers are a thing. So you know to look for a diaper. Now you may not do it to like the best extent. It may not be your best work. And someone might want to go behind you to clean up after you, but it doesn't mean you won't eventually get a new diaper on the baby. You're not going to wrap them in toilet paper or in tissue or a diaper or a towel if you can't find, something. You're going to initially look for the diaper at very least. The baby would have ended up in another diaper. Is all I'm
Yeah.
saying. The hoops they went through were so mind blowingly unlogical. It was hilarious because
Yeah,
it gave
cartoony,
off
if
the
you
vibe.
will. Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
It gave off the vibe of two grown men who have no idea what they're doing, and I think that's why it was perfect.
yeah. And we see that right in the next scene where they're just wiped out on the couch. Danny's been away for one shift,
Mm-hmm.
6 to 8 hours tops, maybe nine with well, it's San Francisco traffic, and they have destroyed the entire house, like,
Yeah.
which is pretty amazing. Danny's assessing the situation. All Jesse has to say is, "Your baby's a pig," and then the we get Vanessa walking in. She's looking fine. Jesse gives us a nice little have mercy. She's over here talking about, oh, cool if I stay here like you said I could, like you said anytime. Like, is that still up? And he's down, I guess, and like they're making out in front of everybody in the middle of the living room. Maybe Jesse just hasn't like figured out that you can't just be planting one on people in a house. Like, this ain't the club, this ain't the bar. You know what I mean? Like, he's really just out here, doing that in front of the kids. But yeah, like a little bit weird, but
Okay, I am going to defend Jesse on this one. Okay, because when he first got there, right, we know that he kind of started talking about the girl that he met, Vanessa, and we all know that he kind of stopped before he got to the inappropriate bits, right? So
mm,
he understands that there is a line. However, he's also completely aware of the fact that while they may be his nieces, they grew up with both parents who, in his mind, he's thinking, oh, they've seen people kiss before. That shouldn't be a problem. Now he's probably not thinking about how the kiss looks from the outside. In his mind, he's just like, it's just a kid. Danny and his wife used to kiss all the time. They have kids. Like, I'm sure the kids watch them kiss all the time. If anything, they'll get a little grossed out, but it's not going to be a big deal. He didn't, in his mind, see how it looked when he went full in passion like that. Like he was ready to just take her on the couch despite the kids.
like he's still transitioning to being able to adjust to having that kind of audience and knowing that kind of
Exactly.
audience. Right in the middle of him making out, Stephanie's, she's out here. She's like, "Where's another game of ballerina?" And they have that little bit of a back and forth. It is revealed that DJ has run away, and there is a little bit of that panic moment. They go upstairs, they look at the bedroom, and it is absolutely spotless. She is gone. And then they just do the whole. You start driving around, call the neighbors, do whatever, and then Stephanie announces, "And I'll go get DJ," and it's just
Yep.
okay.
Nobody asked me.
She has
Yep.
like, okay, what? How do you feel about them using that more than once in the pilot?
I feel like they understood a catchphrase when they saw one. It was smart. It's something that kind of gives you a throwback, but it also emphasizes the character that's using it. And as long as it's one, not overused to a point where it becomes predictable, and two, it's actually funny each time you use it, despite you using it 3 or 4 times, there's never going to be a huge problem with it. If it hits and it's done right, it's going to be perfect. It's going to be a throwback to the moment beforehand, and you're going to giggle to yourself, not only about the moment that it just happened, but referencing back to the moments beforehand. It's like a little
Yeah.
domino effect of funny in a sense.
It
But
kind of
I thought
reinforces that she has that she's going to be that person in those situations. She has those eyes, you know what I mean?
exactly, exactly. Stephanie is hilarious. Stephanie is absolutely hilarious because she's watching everybody just kind of run through the house looking for DJ. In her mind, she's like, I know where she is, but nobody's going to ask me. So this is more entertaining. I'll wait. And she waited. And then it's just, I'll go get DJ. And it's like, you saw us all. Nobody asked me. But it feels like it's one of those things where she's like, you know what, I'm just gonna do this because eventually maybe they'll start asking me when they realize I might know a little bit more than like what they think. And I do
She's
wonder if that's
training
going to
them.
continue. Right. It makes me wonder if like that's something we're going to see later on. Will we see that they're going to start asking her before they go looking later on because she seems to have certain information, or are they going to continue to kind of let her slide under the radar as the season progresses and stuff? I'm curious to see exactly how they choose to develop her in that manner, since they're kind of set the tone for her to be kind of the mischievous middle child who knows everybody's business, but is kind of a secretive herself.
Yeah. It's just whether or not people are going to start putting respect on her name. And that's what she's trying to like get. That's the
Oh,
point she's trying
she's
to get across.
earning that respect through this episode. The nobody asked me got me every time. It got me every time.
So cute. And just her, so like, it is amazing that a kid can be so funny, so young, and like just
Mm-hmm.
have that diction and just like fucking work it. So we notice that DJ is in the basement with all of her stuff, and she is talking on the phone with Kimmy Gibbler, who we do not see. It is mentioned that Kimmy has three sisters. We will cover that continuity issue throughout the series because it is a thing. It's a thing that I still hold on to. I'm not over it, and we will get there. um, and we have
Okay, we're definitely gonna have to because I'm not aware of what that thing is, so this is gonna be new for me.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I
yeah.
don't know what the thing is. At
So
this
take
point, me and
note.
the
She's
audience are in
got
the same
three
spot.
sisters. Word. Yeah. It's pretty. Stuff like this just always gets me with shows. But so then we have that moment where Danny's just trying to convince her that she doesn't want to stay in the in the garage, and she says, "You want some fresh air?" Opens up the whole garage to
Hmm.
get some fresh air in there, and at that point, Danny has just had it. He was like, "Donna Joe, I want you back in the house right now."
I understand that moment because in that moment, Danny can only do what Danny has usually done in those moments. He was the one who was the breadwinner. He went out all the time, so we know that Pam was likely the stay-at-home mom, right? So Pam was the one who had those heart-to-heart moments, those open up and talk to me, be vulnerable. It's okay. This is a safe space. While he was the one who was like, likely, if you don't do this, I'm going to tell your dad when he comes home because dad's going to be the hard ass. Dad's going to play bad cop and, call you by your first, middle, and last name before telling you exactly what to do, scare your ass back upstairs. Like he was trying to do what he already knew, but he learns pretty quickly, that that's not going to exactly work. And we kind of see him get frustrated before he has to, you know, kind of leave her with her uncle and his best friend.
Yeah, I gotta give him credit for that because I feel like that pause, that moment, is when some parents will turn to just trying to scare them more, maybe the violence, maybe some of that other stuff, and he
Mm-hmm.
just really he didn't let that like overcome him. In that moment, Michelle's having an issue, and he needs to go handle that. And him
Yep.
and Joey go handle it, and he leaves Jesse to try to get DJ back in the house, which I understand why, because the baby needed his attention. It's just like, this is what I have. This is just what we're doing right now. Can
Mm-hmm.
you please just handle this? Yeah. So Jesse goes on this whole thing about how this world is unfair because Bruce Willis has a record deal, or using that as an example as one of the many unfair things that has happened on this world. And he is so desperate to get laid that he speeds up the process to get DJ back in the house by paying her off. And I really love this whole haggling moment. I love that she goes down like to $49, and he's all, a buck? You went down a buck? Like, just like
Smart girl. Mommy taught her right before she, passed away. God bless her. But look, DJ did properly in that. Get as much money. If you're not gonna have a heart to heart to me with me and understand how I'm feeling to make me feel better, you at least go and pay for it. I have to go back upstairs and deal with that still. Nothing
mhm.
is changing. It's just now I've got some money that I can't spend until daddy takes me out to go spend it anyways. Or unless the ice cream truck comes around and I decide to spend it there. But she did completely smart in making sure that, if we're gonna bargain, all right, well, it's not gonna be easy. But I
Mhm.
do
Mhm.
wish that he would have taken a moment. Even if it wasn't Jesse and it was Joey instead. Both of them were down there. And it's very evident that like they're uncomfortable with the situation because they're not used to having to deal with this specifically. They don't even have kids. They didn't have to deal with it at the beginning portions of their life either. Just, what's happening right now. So they're kind of, in a sense, learning along with Danny, despite Danny having a little bit more experience in it. But I was disappointed in the fact that nobody tried. But I do also get that they wanted to likely leave that moment for Danny and DJ later to kind of help rebuild that bond that felt like it was being broken in that moment when he chose to go upstairs and check on the baby.
Yeah, well, the other thing too is like I do think that if it was myself, I don't have a lot of. I mean, I would try to talk to the kid, but if I
Mm-hmm.
it definitely is more of a compassionate, I understand this child thing to be able to have that heart to heart, and it does make sense
Yeah.
that they wanted Danny to do it, but an attempt would have been very nice.
I would have
And
loved an attempt that led into a bargain. I would have been completely here for that. To watch like Jesse come in with an attempt, but then realize how much longer it's going to take to try and talk her down. And he was like, "Look, okay, how about this? We could talk about this later, but right now you go upstairs. There's something I need to do. There's someone I need to do. Okay, so just look." $50, you go upstairs and we can talk about this later. Or I'll, take you guys out for ice cream. Like, I would have loved to see that, like, attempt at a heart to heart to realize it was going to take either too long or be too hard or too uncomfortable to then lead into a bargain.
exactly. And throughout this process, we also get some insight on how much Jesse is willing to pay to get laid, which is what they come up to $21, like,
Mm-hmm.
or $25. It's ridiculous. Oh yeah, it's 21, and then she says it's 2021. Vanessa's waiting. Yeah, that, which is so cute. She's just like, I know what you really
Hilarious.
want. I know you don't care about me. Like, I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I am playing this game. Like, I'm a woman. I'm already ahead of you. It's a wrap. Um,
Exactly.
and so this next part is my favorite moment in the entire episode, and it's when we go back into the house. Jesse's bragging that he has a special way with kids, and that's how he got DJ back into the house. But during that process, he asks, "Where's Vanessa?" And Danny reveals that she suggested that it's a little bit inappropriate for her to be sleeping upstairs with Jesse when there are three young girls in the house, in this family house. If you need somewhere to stay, you may stay on the couch. And she decided to
Mm-hmm.
dip after that. I love that moment, and I loved how like he brought it. It wasn't a discussion, you know what I mean? It wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, he was very nice about it, but he was laying down the law with multiple adults, and I just love that moment. Like, I'm not here for inappropriate things happening like too close to where a child be staying. So I really just appreciate Danny putting in that barrier for his girls. It's a stranger.
No, I completely agree with that because it's one of those things where obviously Jesse isn't gonna really know better. Though, if I'm gonna be completely honest, even if they didn't do that scene where Danny, is like, "Oh no, you're sleeping on the couch. I don't know what you're thinking." Let's say Jesse did successfully take her upstairs. Do you really think Jesse would feel comfortable doing that with a girl in a room full of pink bunnies when he felt uncomfortable hugging his brother-in-law in a room full? You, you know, it's It's one of those things where I don't know if he would have been cool with trying to do that on a twin size girl's mattress. You get me?
I
Like
don't
there would have
know. I
been it would have been interesting to see if that would have even gotten in the way. But it's also a family show, so we couldn't even go that far. We had to cut it off immediately so that we didn't get into any unnecessarily adult bits realistically. And the way that they chose to do that was with Danny setting down the law, like, no, I know what Jesse wants and I know what you want, and it doesn't really matter because the couch is here and that's where you're going to be sleeping. Upstairs is for, household members only, excluding Joey. He'll be behind you in the enclave. Like,
exactly. Like,
and to
I
be fair, that's
mean,
probably why she left as well. It's like I have people on the couch, but there's a strange guy sleeping on I guess, the floor behind me. Did they give him a cot? Did they give him a couch? Did they give him a chair? I don't
well,
know exactly where Joey is sleeping.
there's like a seated part in the alcove, and he
There's
like
a seated part that's hilarious. So yes, she would have been sleeping on the couch while a strange man, being Joey, would be sleeping in the seated portion of the enclosure right
yeah.
behind her. That would have been just as weird, and realistically, probably would have been hilarious too if they would have made it to where she'd had no other place to go, so she took it, but left in the middle of the night because Joey kept snoring or talking in his sleep. Like that would have been a cute little ending. But I do really like the way that they chose to go about it with just Danny being like, nope, not in my house. It's just not going to fly. And Jesse better just learn that now. Don't bring any girls over here. It's not happening.
Yeah, and just to your point earlier, I went under. I've seen some of these conditions that men be getting it on in, and a children's room full of bunnies and a twin bed is luxury to some. So,
Oh my! Look, you're not wrong. I would just, in my heart of hearts, in the deepest of my soul, I would hope that Jesse as a character would not be that way.
mm-hmm.
He's got that sweet bad boy, like teddy bear, but I'm wearing armor type of like vibe about him, right?
He's about as
I
hardcore as like I am. Like, it's just it's.
exactly teddy bear with armor is he's a build a bear. Period. Teddy bear with armor. He can put whatever he wants on the exterior. It don't matter how difficult it is to get through. But on the inside, he's just all squishy and sweet.
Well, and we those layers are going to be peeled back. Although in this moment, it's my least favorite moment with Jesse, where he blows up the entire deal, takes the money back from a child, which we already have, like, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But because you didn't get laid, you're going to say that this girl can go ahead and go back into the garage when you know everybody in the house wants her back. Like I thought that was super weird, but I understand.
Petty.
Petty,
Petty with
yeah.
petty with a capital P, 100%. All of that it was petty, but I feel like at least for me, right, growing up in like a mixed household with like both black and white family members, I had family who was exactly like that. I had family who would 100% take back something or, decide that, well, it didn't come through the way it was supposed to. So because you don't technically have to do this anymore, I'll take my money back. That wasn't nearly as shocking to me because it's literally happened to me before in person. So it wasn't nearly as shocking.
But yeah, you know what? And especially, we've already established that he is a little bit more callous to what the kids are feeling
Mm-hmm.
and needing right now. So it totally makes sense. But then a we get a really cute moment where he's just looking at Michelle and he says, "Don't even think about it," which whatever that means.
Can I
Um,
just say, he wasn't talking to Michelle. He was talking to himself because of what happens in that next moment when we see him. He is talking to himself. Don't even think about it, is what he was saying to himself. He's trying to keep that hard exterior. And Michelle, at that moment, the way that she was staring at him was breaking through it. That's why he said, don't even think about it. He was talking to himself 100%.
I need to take 5. But
You'll take 10, take 20, because we
I
had a
mean, no,
little
like
glimpse right there of him just like, damn it. The child of a
it's that
girl going, I
Grinch
am
like
melting.
moment, like with
Yes,
the heart.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. But him trying to be cautious, like, no, don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. Do not fall for this baby. This baby is not yours. We don't even know how long we're going to be here. We don't want to get attached.
I feel for the guy, but you're in it for the long haul, buddy. And then we get our we get our violins. We get our get the violins moment, which we'll just cover right now
Hmm.
because this is what I love about this is Danny just is real for a second and he just asks, how would mom have handled this? And DJ says she would have caught me before I even got down there. You know, she knew everything I was going to do before I even did it. And that truth for what a mother normally is, I know that there are a lot of us or a lot of people who don't always have that
Hmm.
spidey sense with their children or have that experience with their mothers. But it's such a real, like that one line, you kind of know it's like, oh yeah, wait, I mean, mom could basically read your mind at any point,
Yeah.
and like that is gone, you know, and then she just has, you know, her moment where she says, you know, everything just keeps disappearing. First mom dies, then grandma leaves. Now I can't even have my own room. It's just not fair.
Hmm.
And Danny levels with her and hears her and just at that moment it kind of becomes like we are in this together. I we cannot like start turning our backs on each other now and like this is this is when the family needs to family. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I completely get that. And I thought it was a really sweet moment. I think it was a moment that we really needed to kind of wrap up the episode, especially with what happened in the garage when we last saw, Danny and DJ in a room together. Um, the fact that she said, like my mom would know it was going to happen before I even made the move. Like you can tell her mom was her best friend. Her mom was always there. She talked to her mom about everything. And her mom was a stay at home mom. She saw everything that was happening. That's why she wasn't able to get away with anything. But I feel like with me, because I grew up with a mom who, I grew up with a single mom who did work all the time. I didn't really have that same, like, oh, my mom knows exactly what I'm doing before I'm going to do it. Like, that wasn't something that I personally related to, but I thought it was a really sweet moment between the two of them because it felt like it was that moment where Danny was like, I lost my wife, but you lost your mom. And we're both going through different kinds of losses despite it being the same person. So we have to find a way to be there for each other and help each other kind of move forward so it's not as hard as it would be if you were doing it alone.
I really love that you bring that up that she's a different person too. It's a different loss for different people. And I mean, we don't have to get too like off on another thing, but in specifically the Beetlejuice musical, the uh, Lydia's mom dies and she
Mm-hmm.
sings this song to her mom, and at one and the whole thing is like it's kind of created a rift between her and her father. And she has a line where she says, "Daddy's moving forward. Daddy didn't lose a mom." You know, like he's handling it differently, and I just appreciate that this whole show is about these two, this family, like dealing with it together and it not just
Mm-hmm.
like breaking them apart. And plus, it's going to be light and funny because obviously it's a sitcom, but
Yeah,
they needed to, you know, do that thing real quick.
no, I agree. I think it was well added and it was needed as well. It gave a lot of insight to both characters and the relationship we're going to see with them moving forward, which is, you know, DJ is definitely going to step into kind of like a mommy number two type of, uh, role in the house as she gets older, or even probably almost immediately. She's already kind of, when Danny goes off, she does have Jesse and Joey, but they're learning. Out of everybody in the house who's there when Danny isn't, DJ's the one who knows how to take care of everybody. So we're going to see her start to kind of become this mommy number two, trying to step in where, she knows her mom would have stepped in.
Yeah, and there's going to be some episodes that kind of show her having to step into that role, and I really am excited to kind of talk a little bit more about the lines of parentification because while in some situations it is a little bit unnecessary, it is a little bit creepy. There are some times where it just naturally that oldest does need to just step in a little bit, and I'm really interested to have just a little bit more of those nuanced conversations because I do feel like there a lot of the time it's just a hard stop. Like you can't really be doing this, and I agree. I really don't think that it's always appropriate I actually don't think that it is appropriate for kids to have to step into those parenting roles. But when you are doing your best to create a healthy situation for that child, and when you're making sure that that child is taken care of first, it it's not so bad when it is like the necessary thing that needs to happen. So I'm excited to kind of see where that conversation takes us with some of the later episodes. But right after this, we pretty much get our closing. We get our closing scene, and Jesse's being sweet to Michelle. It's like the first time where you really see him just like loving on her. And I always had like a theory that their relation. I think that she either just looks the most like Pam, or just reminds him the most of Pam, or he just feels more of a connection to her because she will never really know Pam, you know, and just feeling like this is the last of Pam that I have. Even though he has like, you know, two other nieces that are all a reflection of her. Something about that, I think her being the baby and needing him a little bit to kind of fill that I think that starts a little bit here, because he has like his special moments with all of the girls, but he's so compassionate, obviously because she's a baby, but you know, I think we see a little bit of that, and it's kind of nice.
No, I think that that little moment between Jesse and Michelle was really fucking cute. It was definitely a moment where like he because they bring up the fact that like she really likes music, right? And obviously we'll get into like the song and whatnot in a little bit, but I think at that moment he kind of was like, okay, I kind of have something in common with this little girl, and the way she was looking at me earlier, making my knees all jelly, she's making me want to just pick her up and kiss her little face and touch her little toes. It's like babies have a way of kind of having this effect over you, right? And then when you kind of, I think, when you realize you have something in common with that baby, especially when you're not used to babies or children, period, it almost makes them feel more human. You're like, oh, you like music too. Okay, all of a sudden they go from being like a baby to like a little human that you kind of, you start to see this personality kind of bloom in front of you. And as Jesse being kind of the free spirited uncle, he probably didn't have much time with them, especially with Michelle, seeing how she was, a year or so old. So it's very likely that for him, he's like, wait, you like music, huh? Like
I
that's that. I also like music. Maybe we can like music together in the same room. Like it
yeah,
becomes. I think that moment where the baby becomes human and not just a baby that spits, cries, and poops in a diaper.
and I've seen I've seen that moment where like people just see the person in the baby, and it's always like
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty funny. This is like I'll make this quick, but I do remember I was riding on the subway one day, and there was a clear un not unprepared, but just a young, maybe didn't plan it out father and his daughter. You know, this may or may not have been one of the few times that like, you know, and she's sitting next to him and he's on his phone, and then at one point she just like looks at him and does like the like this
Mm-hmm.
whole thing and makes a face, and he just starts cracking up. You know what I mean? And it's just like little things like that. Like, you know, it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is a little person, this is your family.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's funny when they do things, you know, and I'm happy that we got to see that moment. They do the Flintstones theme, which I think every sitcom is based on the Flintstones. I'd have to like double check that, but it's a great little throwback, and they do replay this scene or reenact this scene in Fuller House. It's a little bit silly because everybody's so much older, and there is a new baby, but it's a little it's definitely more for us. It doesn't really make a lot of sense in the
Yeah.
show, but it's a sweet moment.
See, Flintstones wasn't something that I necessarily grew up on. I think I saw it on like TV from time to time when I was like flipping through channels, but it wasn't something that I personally watched. So I didn't immediately pick up on the fact that it was a Flintstones until it got to like a certain portion of the song. I was like, oh, okay, I know what that is. But for me, it didn't immediately register.
Yeah, I didn't really watch it all that much either. It was a little bit before it. It was on Boomerang, but like I was
Hmm.
already busy watching modern Cartoon Network at that point. But it is a classic. It resonates, and it closed out our show. And I think it was a solid ass pilot. What was your not in my house moment?
This one was easy. It was the nobody asked me. Whoever was in trouble, whoever was being looked for, would be grounded alongside the person who didn't say where you were because at that point you're now a co-conspirator. That's just
Yeah.
how it works. You've made yourself involved by not telling immediately where that person was. Now because they had to go through the effort of looking, you're a co-conspirator. You helped to harbor a fugitive, and now you're also in trouble. So that's just how that works.
I mean, facts. Yeah. Now, I don't even think I would have been able to say those words to my authority figures. And just want to make it clear, being in a difficult household and dealing with parents who might be a little bit more explosive in their reactions is not a flex. It is a reality for some of us, but that's what makes this show just a little bit. It's what made it amazing for me. The fact that the kids had a voice, and it wasn't always immediately met with anger
Mm-hmm.
or violence or whatever it is. So that's just where we're kind of coming from with all of this. Clear out our DMs. For me, I would say the not in my house moment was the her not moving when being given clear instructions about what her next action should do. Like just her looking up at him like no, like would not occur. Like just, and I feel like that's not even like I feel like they're just stricter households regardless of the color where that shit ain't going
Mm-hmm.
down. So so that would be it for me. And our full stop moment, which I think we both agree, which is that'll be the portion of the episode that just did not age well and just is not
Trickling
really.
water over a bum is the moment.
I would say just the whole exposure of the bum. Like I understand a baby's bottom is cute in like the angel. What do they call those things? Cherub way, like sure.
Yeah, yeah.
But
See,
it's not
I'm
a
trying to
hundred.
like overlook that, right? I'm trying to overlook that specifically because of when it was made. It like this show was being actively like filmed and stuff during the same time where baby diaper commercials still had the naked baby laying on his stomach with the bum out, and that was a national commercial. You get me? So it wasn't necessarily bad in that sense. That's something I can overlook mainly because of the fact that I grew up with those commercials. So like seeing the baby's butt, there's like, oh, okay, baby butt. Everybody there's expressions that go towards this. So it's like it's not something that necessarily made me uncomfortable because I think we've just been so desensitized to the idea of a baby's bottom being on TV and just kind of being out and about like that. It was for me. It was specifically the trickling of the water and trying to make that seem useful in a sense while it was also being funny. That little corner of the joke is what did it for me.
Yeah, that's what made it inappropriate. Like
Yeah,
and yeah, definitely. And then we discussed our get the violins moment. We did our whole thing about that, and it kind of coincides with our a dad like Danny. I would say for me the a dad like Danny moment is when he had told Vanessa to get lost without telling her to get lost. Like I really do think that that was just a great way of him remembering who he is in this house, that it is his house, and there are certain things that are just not going to happen in it. And I just thought that was fire. I just love that control.
for me, I think it would have to actually be the moment when Danny, Joey, and Jesse kind of walk into the room and Stephanie and DJ have split the room in half. At that point, I feel like you get to see Danny understand that he's actually going to have to be like a parent, but he's at the same time in this place where he's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do right now. I feel like that's relatable for a lot of people, not even just people who are like new parents, but even just people who are stepping into a certain role as a parent that they're not used to.
Absolutely, yeah. And and it's just it's impressive, and and it's hard how he has handled it. But I think we all, I mean, I'm sure I'm going to say this every episode, but we all wish we had a dad like Danny.
Yeah.
And he just flexes those dad muscles pretty hard, and I just love I love the way that he's portrayed. I love the way that it came together, and I really do think that this episode, it's hard to not necessarily immediately fall in love with everyone, but you already kind of feel part of this family. I feel like they do a good job of fleshing out the characters and giving you what you're going to get into. But I do like the one point that you made where we're not really seeing a lot of the bestiehood or the brotherhood between Danny and Joey, and I'm we might get a few moments of seeing that like in the future, and I'm interested to see how you kind of feel about those developments. But yeah, as of right now, through the boy in the alcove, and but also like that's also your boy. It's just like yeah, like it's like I don't need to clear out my whole garage for this dude. Like out of here.
Well, I mean, look, okay, like if it was me, right, and like I was in that exact same situation. Now, while I definitely wouldn't go through the whole thing of like, oh, let me clear out the garage so you have a place to sleep, I would say, look, you're sleeping in the enclave until you make time to clean out the garage for yourself. Whenever you get to cleaning out the garage, we can move things in there. You can use it as a room, but I'm personally not going to do it. I have too much going on. However, if you want more than what I have right here, the garage is open to you clearing it out for yourself.
Yeah, and again, yeah, like we shall get there, but yeah, I think that would have been a fair exchange. Any other like thoughts around the episode or anything else you wanna wrap up with?
Honestly, I just it was a good first episode. It was a really good pilot, good with like setting up the story. You got the vibe and the tone of just like everything you were going to be seeing going forward. I do wish we got more development and I guess more of a variety of parts of Jesse. Like I feel like we got very much that like bad boy, tough exterior, Tabor inside, and then obviously the chemistry between Joey and Danny was extremely lacking. That's probably the one thing I was the most disappointed with. Um, and then I think we just need to normalize the fact that Joey's been turned into Harry Potter and he's been stuck under the stairs until someone decides he's worthy and he can go to Hogwarts.
Yeah, nah, he will make it there. He will get his letter. And yeah, I mean, this episode, I mean, if it, to me, I didn't start watching the earlier episodes of Full House until way later. What drove me to Full House was Olsen twins. So by the time I was able to recognize that it was an Olsen twin, it was very later on in the series. But I do have a very special like relationship because before I used to be like, oh, I don't know if I like it without Mary Kate and or Ashley, but all these characters are so great, and I do love these early episodes of when she is still a baby. Like Michelle baby era is very very special, and I'm excited to roll with it and to watch her grow. I know that like the girls, the human being women themselves have their thoughts about it and just the industry and everything, but I really hope that they know that they are just absolutely beloved individuals. They have support. They have, this is their legacy, and I hope that there's at least some love that they can have for it, even though I'm sure it has just been a whirlwind for all child actors, especially when you don't really have a lot of autonomy sometimes. So I appreciate the work that they did at this part of their lives.
No, I completely agree. Well, obviously I didn't watch a bunch of Full House. I've seen enough of it to at least appreciate what it does bring to the table, but I'm curious to kind of dive in and I guess see the meal in its entirety rather than just a couple of side dishes. Thanks so much for listening, everyone.
Please remember to like, subscribe, follow all the things, and stay tuned to the next episode. Until then, this is Dax
and M reminding you
to lock your doors.